Community has unfortunately become like an oversaturated buzzword in business, and very few companies actually have a strong community and foster it. We just really, really need opportunities and ways to connect with other people, encouraging our generation to put their phones down and to make memories and find time to gather. For my business, I believe it's what we offer. Wine is an invitation to do that.
Welcome to Marketing Happy Hour. I'm Cassie, consultant, podcaster, and your host. Every Thursday, you'll hear episodes packed with insights from brand leaders on an array of topics, from crafting effective marketing strategies and hitting career goals to building leadership skills and launching your own business. Inspired by those unfiltered happy hour combos with peers, this show is all about practical, empowering chats to support your professional journey. So grab your favorite drink and let's get to the episode. So today's episode is a long time coming. Jess and I were talking offline just about how Whiny Baby has been on Erica and I's radar for quite some time. So super stoked to finally chat with the founder of the brand. Jess, welcome to the show today.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, of course. And if you're not familiar with Whiny Baby, I encourage you to pause this episode very quickly. Please go check it out. It's such a fun brand. And we'll talk about just the journey that you took, Jess, to build this brand, start it, what that process was like. But I have to ask you before we dive in, is there a go-to bottle that you're loving right now, or just something that you're super stoked about recently that you guys have been working on?
Oh my gosh, so many exciting things. I think it's silly, but really all three are meant to be like the perfect starter pack. So I would just say, if you are unfamiliar with wine, like I was, and honestly still am, I'm still learning. I was 22 when I started the brand, but I wish I had something like Whiny Baby that introduced me to wine and was an easy starting place. And so that's why we've got our starter pack, and there are 3 blends. So you can just go, I'm going to try red, I'm going to try white, I'm going to try rosé. And from there you can go, okay, I liked this one. My personal favorite is Obsessed, our red blend. And a lot of people think they don't like red wine. So if you think you don't like wine, if you think you don't like red wine, give our red a try, but certainly work your way through the entire starter pack.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good approachable brand for wine. So highly recommend. I've had the unwind white wine before. It's delicious. I have to ask too, like, I feel like part of the whole experience is the bottle itself. Like, it's so cute. It's so fun. So for those who are like, I'm driving, I'm doing whatever, like I can't check out Instagram or the website right now. Can you kind of describe quickly, like, what that presence or appearance is, just a little bit for us?
I mean, the whole bottle itself and the packaging, I would say, is really what makes Whiny Baby special. I am passionate that any brand can make a trendy, cute label and slap it on a bottle. And Whiny Baby really is a reimagined experience. And, the whole story is that I had a first date, and he asked me to bring a bottle of wine, and I was 22 and had no clue what to grab. And from there, it really started me becoming obsessed with wine, but really the entire wine drinking experience, from the moment you're picking it out on the shelf till you finish the bottle. And so the details really are that, when you're looking at the bottles, each is labeled with a big word that's meant to embody a occasion or reason for buying. So we've got OMG, obsessed, and, like you said, unwind. And I love that you use the correct name for it. And the thought process there was really, when me and my friends were grabbing a bottle of wine, it was for a reason or an occasion, right? So if you're just hanging out, having a chill night in, reading your book for book club, maybe you're going to grab unwind. If you have a first date, maybe you're grabbing the obsessed with all the hearts on it. And then OMG is certainly what everyone uses for, their best friend getting engaged, or, someone passing the bar or moving into their dream apartment. It's the celebration one. And then from there, there's all sorts of fun different things, but we've got our conversation bottle caps. So if you're driving right now and you can't take a look, our bottles have bottle caps instead of corks. And when I first started, the bottles originally did have corks. And what happened was I kept breaking the corks. And I was like, okay.
As do we all.
Yeah, right? So I was like, if I own a wine brand and I keep breaking corks, other people are too. And I also like the look of crown caps. So they have we have crown caps, and then underneath is surprise conversation starters. So everything from spin the bottle to what's a book you're reading, the craziest place you've done the deed. There's all sorts of fun, juicy ones. And then lastly is the back. You flip it over and it's a peel and stick savable back label. I've never seen another wine brand certainly have. It's like a sticker on a sticker. It peels completely off and it says date, location, memories from the bottle. And you can fill it out and save it and keep those memories. People put them in journals or picture frames or cards. And, all of those concepts were on my original bottles, but they've evolved and improved. So on the original bottle, I didn't have the technology or resources to do like a sticker on a sticker. So the label, but everyone was like, I love this so much, but I don't want to keep the whole bottle,
Right.
peel it off. So that's how we've kind of evolved it over time. And that concept again came from, I was on the first date and like a lot of people, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I'm going to marry this guy, I want to keep this bottle of wine forever.
Oh my
And
God.
that's what wine does. It creates memories and, all those details that I've developed are meant to enhance the consumer's experience.
Yeah, and it really is that. It's a whole experience in and of itself. Obviously, the wine itself it comes with memories, it comes with experiences, but to be able to kind of like dive into the bottle as an experience, the brand as an experience, it's so fun. So, okay, so I want to go back and talk about your story. Like you were in kind of this media marketing world, right? And then you founded Whiny Baby. So what was that journey like? Like why did you jump ship? Like what was kind of the
Yeah.
process there to building this brand today?
Yeah. So I'm super passionate about, the story and sharing it because still to this day, I think a lot of people, especially people in their 20s, look at people who have started businesses and they're like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? And it can be easy to be like, yeah, she had an idea and and there's so much more to it. And so I just think it's really important to encourage others. Like there's no difference between me and other people. We all have ideas. The only difference is I went for it and I wake up every day and choose to keep pushing forward. It really has to be an everyday decision. But I was working and living in Los Angeles. I dropped out of college, so I kind of had an earlier start, I would say, to like working in corporate America and things like that. And I landed an amazing job at Red Bull and worked my way up there for a while. And it's funny because I didn't know it at the time, but Red Bull, is the greatest beverage marketer of our generation, if not marketer, period. And they really showed me what it looks like to have a product that represents a lifestyle. And when someone thinks of Red Bull, they don't just think of the energy drink. They think of the athletes, and Red Bull gives you wings. And that is the greatest example of marketing, in my opinion. And I always say, if the wine industry could take just a little bit of Red Bull's approach, we'd be in a lot better position. Unfortunately, the wine industry is really struggling right now, and I am an eternal optimist. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think we're in the best place for opportunity. I think that the wine industry just hasn't done a good job of introducing our generation to wine, which is what Whiny Baby is doing. So anyways, I was working at Red Bull. It was the pandemic, so we switched from in office every day to remote, like a lot of people. And honestly, for the first time in like my, early 20s, I was like, okay, I should probably like think about my personal life now. So I like download Hinge and I'm like, I had more time on my hands and went on that date, had the idea. And over the next year, I kind of puttered around with the idea, I Googled how to start a wine brand and I was like, oh gosh, this is like really hard, just like everyone else does. And it wasn't till I had an unfortunate life event, but it was the catalyst. My stepfather had passed, and it was during that time that I really saw the power and healing power of food and wine. And he was ill for about 3-4 months, and my mom would come home from the hospital and friends and family would fly in and we'd sit around the table and, have food and wine. And before that, I think people grow up in households where either your parents like drink wine frequently or they don't, and mine didn't. And so if you grow up how I grew up, you're not introduced to wine, so it wasn't until I kind of had that family experience that I was like, whoa, life is short. It really showed me like if I want to go for something, I need to go for it. And wine is the thing I want to go for because it is so powerful and so healing. And Gen Z is the loneliest generation. We need connection, and wine is a catalyst for that. So had the idea, wasn't for like a year later that I really went, I'm going for it. And then it was another year of, I didn't go, I'm going for it and quit my job. I couldn't do that. I couldn't afford to do that. So I had the idea. I was fortunate enough that my family had set aside money for me to go to college. So when I dropped out over the years, I'd be like, hey, can I tap into that money for XYZ? And thankfully they said, no, 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 no. And finally with Whiny Baby, they said yes. And so it wasn't a lot. I mean, like 20,000, something like that, which is amazing and more of a springboard that many people don't have. However, if I hadn't had that, I would have gone out. I would have figured out how you get $20,000 to start. But $20,000 around about that much, had to be scrappy, just Googled my way through it. And then I'm so passionate about podcasts because I would listen to How I Built This like every morning on my walk. And that's how I found my partners, the McBride sisters. They were on How I Built This. And podcasts are so powerful because you just get an immediate, access to hear people's stories. And hopefully when people listen to this, they have a similar experience of, oh, wow, that person's like just like me. And I can totally do that too.
Absolutely. I mean, your story is such a testament to truly like, you don't have to have this crazy background in wine or whatever it is to like start this company. If you just talk to the right people, research your way through it. Like if you're determined enough and hardworking enough, you will figure it out. So it's not letting any of those variables stop you.
And I also say, I really feel that my like superpower and really an important element to Whiny Baby is that I don't know a lot about wine. I know who to partner with and allow them to be the experts. So, Whiny Baby is premium quality wine. We have an amazing winemaking team, and I'm a part of that. But I get to have the mindset that our consumers have, and that helps me translate what they're looking for. Because to be honest, the longer I'm in the industry and the more I learn, it's like, wait a second, the everyday person doesn't have this knowledge. I shouldn't know what you're supposed to do. The everyday person doesn't. And so I think oftentimes leaning into what you don't know can be just as, if not more powerful.
Yeah, for sure. So going back to Whiny Baby's ready to be on shelves, sold in line, online, however you guys kind of first started and stepped into the market, what were some of those strategies you took to get this fairly new brand kind of off the ground, out into consumers' hands, increasing visibility for the brand itself? So what were some of those first early days, strategies there that you imparted to do that?
Yeah. So thankfully, we're not seeing the TikTok ban right now anymore because TikTok played a really big part in our journey. It's interesting. I actually don't talk about this a lot, but you're the perfect person to talk about it with because I know you'll get it. So in 2020, again, just like everyone else, I was like, oh, what's this TikTok thing? And I started going on it, and I'd really just talk or say, I'm a very opinionated person with a lot of thoughts, and I was like, great, I can just share thoughts here. And I grew a little bit of a following, nothing crazy, but like around 80,000 or something. And it's funny, I had this kind of thought where I went, oh, I could really pursue this and probably like start making money off TikTok.
Yeah.
But I realized I was like, I don't really have interest in like being an influencer per se. Influencers are hired by brands.
Right.
And I went, I want to be the boss. I want to be the brand, not the influencer. And so I made an intentional decision to go, look, I've grown this community naturally, and I just am more of an entrepreneur myself, and I would rather create a product and a brand for this community rather than be an influencer who gets paid by other brands, if that makes sense. And so I kind of paused from posting on TikTok and spent time, I should have been better about keeping up with that, but I just felt like I needed to focus on building Whiny Baby. And so then when I launched my proof of concept, I had this platform, an immediate way to kind of get consumer feedback. And so I only posted 2 TikToks when I launched, and they went pretty viral. And we sold out of that. I had a small batch of that like proof of concept round
Mhm.
that I say. And that pretty much sold out and kind of proved my point for, look, there is a need for this. And that gave me the ability to go, okay, I've proved my point. I've made my proof of concept. And now how am I going to scale this thing? And that's when I went, I could, bootstrap, sell, get more money, sell, but that would take me years to get on store
Mhm.
shelves. The other route I could do was, raise money, but I knew this industry is so complex and I could raise $10 million and wouldn't have the proper resources or infrastructure to execute. I didn't trust myself, right? I'm not the best person to execute the operations in that way. And so I kind of had this thought, look, the wine industry is, I think not enough people talk about how, I talk a lot about ideas and going for it and creativity. Probably the most important part is actually my research and the not glamorous part. Like
Mhm.
for every fun, creativity, marketing, I backed it with research. So I
Yeah.
knew I had a hunch, right? Like the wine industry, the shelves, like they're not speaking to me. They're probably not speaking to others. But then I had research to back it. Oh yeah, the wine industry is failing to capture new consumers. So that's important. You have to have you have an idea, but you have to be backed by
Yes.
research and facts that there's, a need for this. Um, so yeah, I had that research, I had the backing and went for it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like that truly is a testament to just if you're in marketing and you want to pitch a new idea for a campaign or whatever, like the idea itself may sound awesome and you may present it to a leader and they're like, "Okay, cool, but like how does this lead to the bottom line?" And so to your point, coming with that research and that
Yeah,
information to present because most leaders, most investors, whoever it is you're talking about, they just want to know the why. They want to know
yeah,
what's in it for me, what's
yep.
in it for us as a brand. And so doing your due diligence like that is so, so incredibly
Yeah.
important. So
And it
thank you for
allowed me to
sharing that.
realize it was true, right? All these
Hmm.
big wine companies, they had what I needed: the
Yeah.
winemaking excellence, the infrastructure, the distribution, the operations, and I had what they needed, which was the innovation, the community, all of that. And so it really worked in my favor that kind of my hunch was correct.
Yeah.
And then that's how I landed my partners, which is what allowed me to so quickly get on store shelves and grow. And I'm so grateful to them, the McBride sisters. If you are not familiar, they're the largest Black owned and largest female owned wine company in the U.S. And
Yeah.
they have an amazing story. And I was also fortunate, a lot of times you enter into a partnership like that with a bigger company and they have every right to come in and change things. And they trusted and believed that Whiny Baby would only work if me and the community stayed authentic. And
Yeah.
so when I said, I want our still wines to be, our rosé is slightly frizzante. It's not a full sparkling.
Hmm.
It has a little bit of bubbles. The everyday person wouldn't know this or realize this, but our bottles are actually sparkling bottles. So industry people think they're sparkling
Hmm.
wines. The everyday person doesn't know that, right?
Sure.
And so I was like, well, I want them to be in the same bottles. Like the cohesion is important to me and Gen Z, like aesthetically, right? And it really drives the idea that they're this pack that go together. If they were
Yeah.
in different style bottles, that, in my opinion, that didn't work. And so I asked our winemaker, like, does it hurt the wine, And she's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
no, like, but that's not really what you do. And I'm like, well, the consumers don't know that, right? You may know that.
Yeah.
And thankfully, my partners, the McBride sisters, said, we agree. Okay, if that's what you want to do,
I
go
love
for
that.
it. So it's stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And it's just also, I mean, so many things are popping out at me here, but it's like also this idea of challenging the status quo. Like, just because things have always been a certain way doesn't exactly mean they have to continue to be that way. Yeah, there's a purpose and there's a reason for a lot of things, but just not being afraid to do something a little bit different and tell
Yeah,
people and explain to people why you want to do it that way. And that helps you stand out,
totally.
I
And
think.
I
So,
love what you said before about kind of like you have to prove a lot of times to leaders or investors, um, you know, you have to show them you can have the idea in your head, it makes sense. Like, oh, I'm
yeah.
going to execute it like this, but it's a skill set that is not talked about enough because you can have an idea, but if you can't communicate it,
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter. You're right. If you can't get other people to understand it. So, one, that's why I went, okay, it's not enough for me to make a deck and pitch it to wine companies. I
Right.
had to do the proof of concept. And it was important to me too, because now I can say it's true. For that proof of concept round, I did everything on my own. I packaged it, I shipped it out, I found the wine. So that's given me, you know, credibility and also experience that was important. But the whole concept of having to prove your idea really began for me during my time at Red Bull. I was a producer and really young and junior, and I wanted to be part of bigger projects. There was a specific documentary it was a docu-series that
Hmm.
I wanted to produce and lead. Why would they give me that opportunity? But I knew I deserved it. And so what I did, and I actually to this day still do this, you know, I've always been the person who goes the extra mile. And I think when you're younger, that's like cringe and whatever. Like, no, go the extra mile because most people
Yeah.
won't. And so what I did was when I wanted that, I built a deck proving out, my concept, how I was going to execute it, my budget, I showed, how I was going to do this docu-series, and I printed it out, I bound it, and I left it on every single leadership person at Red Bull's desk. And I ended up getting that docu-series. And same thing when I had the opportunity to meet with my partners. Oh my gosh, you land a once in a lifetime meeting. Great, you're going to show up, you're going to talk, but in my head, I'm going, no, I need to show them that I will be the most buttoned up person in the
Yeah.
room. I know how, and so same thing. I built a deck, I bound it, gave it to them. And so then, we could have a great conversation, but they'd have something physical where they go, oh yeah, that girl, we really should, do something with her. So
Yeah.
going the extra mile, taking the time to visualize and communicate what's in your head, that, in my opinion, is going to be the thing that really helps you get there.
Yeah. And then with that, I have to ask you, just building confidence in your ideas, in yourself, clarifying how you communicate and stuff. Do you have any tips for just honing that and building that out personally? Like, what do you feel young professionals, especially who are just getting their feet wet in their careers, or if they're building a business, how can they go about like building that confidence in their ideas and just making sure they're clearly communicating? Like, what are some things you feel
Yeah,
they can do?
it's funny. I've been thinking a lot about like this topic of confidence, because I think you really do get to a point where even in your personal life, this sounds bizarre to relate it to professional life, but I think it's important. Like, I was driving the other day, and I think every person has struggled with like body confidence at some point in their life. And I was driving, and I like remembered to a time back in college when I really struggled with it. And I remember that I would like not go to certain things or events because I was so insecure about that. And I like was driving, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot that I used to feel that way. And
Mm,
it made me so sad that I like had felt that way. And so similarly, I think how you overcome those things is very different personally and professionally, and a whole other topic. But similarly, in your professional life, I have had times where I went, oh wow, I have always been very confident in my professional life, and kind of just known that I've really believed in myself. But I think it's
yeah.
because I put in the work. And so because of that, I have, I've put in the work and I put in the research. So I trust myself with that. But I think that gaining confidence is really through like exposure therapy, right? Someone asked me actually yesterday, like, how do you get comfortable and like, confident and stay strong after being told no? And I'm like, I put so much stuff out there and work for so many opportunities that one no doesn't even phase me, because
Yeah.
I've got 80 other things in the works.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that if something was a no, well, one, I've had enough time and experience to go, there's major retailers. I can't share which one, but it's really exciting because it comes out this year. One of my favorite retailers we landed this year. Well, last
Amazing.
year they told me no. And they told me no, like even as far to say as like they didn't particularly care for the style of wine. And like that really hurt me. And like I was sad, but I was like, okay, like we move forward. And now fast forward a year, now they want it and it's going into their stores. And so I just think it's like you just got to, if you're going to do something like this, you just got to get comfortable. Not everyone's going to like you. Like, it's like social media too. If you put yourself out there, I was just on a reality show, so
Yeah.
scary. And I was like, look, I'm going to go on here. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that is okay. Like,
Yeah.
I don't like everyone in the world. Like, no one,
Yeah.
not everyone, but I think when you do something like this, you have to have a great group of people around you where I go, look, I care about my family, my friends, my business partners' opinions of me because they know me and but I don't care what a stranger on the
Yeah.
internet, their opinion of me. But really failure and growing in professional confidence, it comes from experience. I used to hate this because like at 22 when people be like, well, some things just take time. I'm like, well, no, like I'm 22. Even from 22 to 27,
Yeah.
the skills I've gained, it's just now when I'm told no, I have the experience to look back and go, well, maybe in a year it'll be a yes. So
Yeah.
some of it just comes with time, it comes with experience. And then lastly, this is maybe the most important part. I'm only 27, and that's not lost on me that is like so young. I used to be like, I dropped out of college because I was just like, I need to get on with my life. And then I started a business because I was like, I've always been like on to the next thing.
Hmm.
When I look back, I would not have been able to do what I've done now if I didn't have that time at Red Bull, if I didn't have all the other jobs I've worked. So if you're in something and you're like, I feel stuck, I want to move on, that's great. But you will look back and be like, wow, all the skills I'm developing right now and all
Yeah.
the people that I worked with at Red Bull, I've worked with them in some capacity or they've helped me with Whiny Baby. So whatever you're doing right now, don't blow it off because you're ready for the next thing.
Yes.
It's okay to be ready, but the people you're working with, you'll work with them again or they'll help you in some way. And the skills you're developing, you will use them. So just I know it's hard. It's still hard for me. Like even with Whiny Baby, I'm ready for the next thing, I'm
Yeah.
ready for the next product we're going to develop. I'm ready. There's a reason we're in the time we're in now, and you don't want to miss what you're supposed to learn because you're
Yeah.
looking for the next thing.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, I was literally in therapy yesterday and my therapist is like, "You're such a go-getter. Like you're so forward thinking." She's like, "That's amazing and you need that." But she's like, "Slow down. Like
Yes.
experience everything you need to experience right
Yes.
now. Like what can you take away from this?" So, it's such a good reminder to anyone who's like very driven, which again is very positive, but like there's a balance there,
Yes.
right?
It's
So,
so true.
so
It's
good.
something I think we're all clearly. I mean, I literally talked about it with my therapist
Yeah.
like a week ago. I also love like I don't even know how old you are, but I feel like you're Gen Z.
29. Very
Okay,
close.
you're
Yeah.
cusp. I'm
Yeah,
27,
yeah.
so we're
Yeah.
cusp, right?
Uh-huh.
It's actually you are like some people would say we're like zillennials, because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I know I'm not a millennial, but I definitely don't like identify with like core older
Sure,
millennials. But then
sure.
also, Gen Z, the bulk of it is a lot younger. So it's like this zillennial generation is pretty caught in the middle.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, it's funny. I myself am working through that exact thing in therapy too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. It's a good reminder and it's good to hear from other people kind of navigating that. It's very
Yeah.
reassuring.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day about just like
Same.
career and like
Oh my
personal
gosh, same.
development. But I have to ask you just about that like connection and community piece. So you talked a little bit about that with Whiny Baby, but connection-based consumption is at the heart of your brand, which
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So why do you feel fostering connection is such an integral part of what you're doing? And why do you think, just overall, thinking about the bottom line of a business, for example, that community element is so critical?
Yeah. It's funny. Community has unfortunately become like an oversaturated buzzword in business, and very few companies actually have a strong community and foster it. And to be totally honest, it's something that I want to grow with Whiny Baby. I think you make a product and, you know, so much of my day to day is getting that product into stores and working with distributors and all that um, you a lot of times don't have the budget or the resources to execute the community aspect in full that you want to. However, social media obviously plays such a big part, and I think we really do have a community and actually, embrace it in the sense that we've been developing an orange wine. And when it came time to make the label, to decide on the flavor profile, I literally, social media made those decisions. They picked the color palette, they picked the logo, they picked the design, they picked like there I actually disagreed with the final result. And I had a moment where I was like, I really liked this one better. And I was like, no, like I asked our community, they gave me an answer, and that's like what it should be. And so it's funny to me that I remember sitting in meetings at Red Bull and this whole how do we get, the new consumers, like every single company is having that conversation. And I was in a boardroom full of wonderfully talented, very intelligent, but much older, not very diverse people. And I remember thinking, like, you're all sitting here going, how do we, what should we do? Coming up with these ideas. Like, A, why are there not more people that represent the community you're after in this room? But B, why are you not just asking them themselves, what do you want? What would, what are you into? What would help? And so I'm really passionate about the fact that, even myself being a Gen Zer, I don't know all the answers. My friends, I'm trying to be hyper aware of just because my friends like something, well, that's not a representation of the rest of the country, So I really make an effort to get a variety of opinions from our community because that's what it really, means to me. In terms of, why that's important and connection-based consumption, again, Gen Z is the loneliest generation. I think we're all still struggling with this, and I don't think it's fully hit the peak of like technology has been changing so fast. We had the pandemic, and then now I don't know the percentage, but most people I know went from working in an office to working from home. And I struggle with loneliness. Like my every single day is I'm like up, I'm on my computer, and I realize I'm like, oh my gosh, like I haven't like seen another person in like 2-3 days because I like work from home. And so we just really, really need opportunities and ways to connect with other people. And for the wine industry specifically, there is a decline of drinkers across all of alcohol, but especially wine. And what I firmly believe is not the solve, but what I firmly believe is not changing no matter what changes in terms of drinking habits is when people gather, they drink, period. And so encouraging our generation to put their phones down and to make memories and find time to gather, that is, for me personally, what I believe the whole point of life is. But then for my business, I believe it's what we offer. It's, look, a generation is feeling this way. Wine is an invitation to do that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of marketers always wonder like, okay, that sounds awesome. And I want to build a community around my brand, but like, how do I get started? What are some different strategies I can employ? Social is a big piece, right? Like I tell everyone all the time, I'm like, if you are not responding to comments, simply put, responding to DMs, like that's the first way to start. Like build trust with your community, show that you're there listening. But is there anything else that you would say are just like easy touch points or even unique, fun, different things you all have done to cultivate that community?
For a lot of CPG brands that, enter into stores, you'll do like a store sampling. So we started doing that, and we got back results that we were like over indexing like 60% than industry standards. And why I think that is when we'd go into a city, we would promote it obviously on social. But if I'm going to tell someone, come to a store and try the wine, I'm going to make it an experience. So I would add elements like they'd come in and they could, take the back of the label, and I'd provide like kind of like arts and crafts. I'd make a thing of it. I'd say, grab your girlfriends, if I'm going to tell them to come to like a Bevmo or a Total Wine or a Target, on a Thursday night, like I want to make it a thing. And so I would do that. But then the extra cherry on top was, I myself am going to these samplings, so I'd be traveling. Well, if I'm going to go travel for a sampling, I'm going to make the most of it. And so what I would do is I'd make sure all of our samplings were in kind of like college towns. And the night before a sampling, I would DM myself what I believed were like local tastemakers that were at a college or recently graduated or whatever, and I'd say like, hey, I own this wine brand. We're doing a sampling in your city. Do you and a group of your friends want to have dinner with me, and we'll like try through some of our wines? And we started doing these, what we called like tastemaker dinners, and they were so fun. Like, I'm friends with all the people we still do it with, and that to me is like about as authentic as it gets in terms of creating a community. And it's hard as a brand owner, like, even though I have an amazing partnership, I'm still small and still scrappy, and a lot of stuff I'm still doing myself. And I think, as hard as that can be, what happens is a brand will grow too fast, and then a founder becomes kind of detached, right? They're not checking their DMs. I'm guilty of it. We've had amazing people who work on our social media and, run kind of point on community. And so for a while, like, I wasn't in our DMs because someone else was. And then when I started jumping back in, I was like, I should never become removed from this, because when I started jumping back in, I had the opportunity. Now, I don't do this for everyone, so I don't want everybody DMing now, but I had the opportunity, someone had messaged, I was really bummed to see that I went to the store and the bottles didn't have the beads on them, because currently they only come on orders from whinybaby.com. The reason being they're not yet shelf safe. That's just not something we've been able to do. I will say, sneak peek, we have a retailer this year that's bringing the bottle beads to shelf. So
amazing.
Major retailer in the Midwest. You will be the first to have the bottle beads on the shelf. But she wrote this thing about, how bummed she was and like disappointed in the brand. And that's so important for me to see. So I was able to personally reach out, personally send her beads, and say like, look, you're a valued member of our community. I totally get that frustration. Let me send you some. Hang tight while we figure this out. But that is fostering authentic, real community, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think if it's your founder, awesome. If it's someone from your team, like, that human connection with a brand is so important too. And that really stands out. Like, when you take the time to like personally write a message to that person and that customer, like, they will remember that and that touch point with the brand. And so I think, just how can you humanize as much as possible? How can you open the line of communication? How can you show you're listening to your consumers and integrating that feedback wherever necessary? I think those are all just important elements that sometimes we forget about. So,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I want to just ask quickly about digital channels. So just keeping consumers engaged between purchases. So social media, you guys have such a fun presence on there. So what's kind of the strategy there for just maintaining that relationship, that connection with your community in between their bottle purchases online or in store?
Yeah, there's a couple different touch points. I'd say Instagram is our main one. I love Instagram story features that really allow us to poll and ask questions and interact. Like, I just think that's like, every brand should be polling on their stories. You literally get to ask your consumer and get direct feedback. It's amazing. Whiny Baby, naturally, like, people love to take pictures, and so we get so many, DMs and pictures from our community that just like that, like, makes my day. That being said, it's so important to remain on top of emerging platforms. Unfortunately, and this is something I really still struggle with, and I need to start talking about it more to start getting more solves for it. But TikTok, while you can be an alcohol brand and be on TikTok, it's like a law that you can't promote alcohol on a social media platform if the majority of the users are under 21. And for a time, that was the case. I don't know if it's still the case, but I do know that whether TikTok itself shadow bans alcohol content, I know that it's very, very difficult for alcohol brands to promote on TikTok. So if I'm being honest, I kind of went, look, it's not pointless, but it's really like not the best platform for an alcohol brand. I'm going to maintain my personal TikTok as kind of I myself embody the brand just naturally. And that's good enough, like, there. And then TikTok, of course, Reels, and we really execute always on content. We're always posting. We're always, and we try to blend, when we were in the middle of developing our orange, and we still are developing our orange wine. I didn't know. I thought orange wine came I didn't think it came from oranges. Some of my friends thought it came from oranges.
Oh my
What
God.
I got confused on is people say skin contact, and I thought that
Yes.
skin contact meant the winemaker like was hands on. I know it's crazy.
I no, I completely understand.
This is a
I've
normal,
had these
valid.
conversations with many people. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just know industry people, if they listen to this, are like, oh my God, whatever. Okay. The everyday person does not know what skin
Yes,
contact means.
exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, lean in. Like if I thought that, right? So we made all these amazing graphics, like orange wine is not come from oranges, like, talking about orange wine. So I
Yeah.
really try to blend entertainment and education. I really think the wine industry needs to do a better job of that. And then lastly, I would say, well, actually, two parts. Lastly, one, I think on the topic of emerging platforms like Substack, for me personally
Mhm.
and for Whiny Baby, an amazing platform that I need to spend time diving into and figuring out. And I want to have a presence there, whether it's me or the brand, or we'll figure that out. Our bottles have a phone number and we promote a phone number on social media. And that has been such an authentic form of community. I mean, if you text it,
Mhm.
it's me and maybe like two other people who even have access to it, but it's most of the time me you're talking to.
That's
But
amazing.
people like leave voicemails and ask questions, and more on a industry side of things, it's been an amazing tool for genuinely going. eh, In my industry, what happens is you work with a distributor and they put you on store shelves. And so I may know a store in a state we're going into, but I don't know like when it actually hits the shelf. And so I feel really bad saying like, Kentucky, we're now on these store shelves, and then someone will go and they're like, it's not there. Like that's breaks my
Yeah, yeah,
heart,
yeah.
and that's awful. And so I was having that problem. And so I leaned in and I'm like, look, I don't know. I need your help. If I'm wasting your time, I'm so sorry, but I need your
Mhm.
help. And people started going to the store, taking a picture, sending it to the Whiny Baby number, and then I would
So
screenshot
funny.
it and say, confirmed, Kentucky, we are on the shelf. And I'm like, our community really, they're like our little army, like out there working with us. So I just think companies need to lean in. It can be scary. I shared for the first time yesterday that we've had a delay on our orange wine. It was supposed to come out last year, and I
Mhm.
can't share why that delay has happened yet,
Sure.
but I, there is a delay. It is coming, bear with us. And so it's uncomfortable when you're in it as a business owner to lean into the difficulties, but
Mhm.
people value that transparency, and you'll be surprised how much they'll like work with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's goes back to that trust element. Like if you just open that line of communication, but I love also how you've just alluded to like testing and trying platforms. You tried
Yeah.
TikTok. It wasn't really working out for you, so you pivoted there and you're leaning into these other areas. And I think that's such an important lesson to business owners, to marketers, like don't be afraid to try something new, but if it doesn't work, like don't be afraid to pivot away from that too. It's
Absolutely.
totally fine.
You know
So,
what's interesting? And again, I'm like I have no problem like sharing things that I'm like in this moment working on.
mhm.
One thing is like, do I evolve our branding over time? Do I evolve it to mature, or do I have products that evolve? And that I think a brand would be like, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's how you
Yeah.
build like an iconic, like you think about Red Bull or Coca-Cola. It's like, they're not like, you wouldn't change a whole brand identity over the years. And I would never change our entire identity, but yeah, it's crossed my mind to like adapt and grow because I grow and so do our
Yeah.
consumers. And so those are the interesting things that I think a lot of brands, that's not the norm, to go, hey, it's okay to change and adapt and grow and, adapt over time. And I actually don't have a good example of a lot of brands that have really done that. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
Whiny Baby will become an example one day of doing that.
Oh, I'm so curious to see what you decide to do with that and just excited to hear about the orange wine launch. Big fan of orange wine. Can't wait for
Yes.
that one. Well, speaking of that, Jess, this has been amazing. I mean, so many good insights and we can't wait to just stay in touch with you, stay in touch with the brand. So, where are the best places to do that online?
Social media, Whiny Baby, our Instagram, of course. I'm super responsive on my own Instagram. And yeah, like I had a call a couple days ago with another aspiring beverage founder, and she was like, you'd be surprised how many people, haven't taken my calls. And that saddened me because when I first started out, and still, people have been very generous with their time to give me advice. And so that's something that I want to always do, is pay it back. And I think that it's interesting. I think about this a lot for young people and for women. I think that a lot of it's sad. This isn't for the majority or whatever, but I think oftentimes women don't always want to empower other women because they're like the only woman. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's not lost on me that being a young woman in the wine industry has been beneficial because there's so few, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever do that. There is space for everyone. You know, I want, and it doesn't even, I'm not even just talking women, I'm just talking across the board. There is space for everyone. And the only way we're going to grow is by helping each other. And for me, for the wine industry, a win for the wine industry is a win for me and Whiny Baby. And so, you know, I want to do that for others always.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Yeah. I appreciate that offer. And we'll have all of the links to Whiny Baby channels as well as your channels below. Jess, thank you so much again. This has been such a inspiring, empowering chat, and just can't wait to stay connected with you and stay in touch with everything you're working on.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love your feedback. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, sign up for my weekly newsletter in the show notes. You'll get weekly career and marketing insights straight to your inbox. And if you have an idea for a future Marketing Happy Hour episode, shoot me an email, hello@marketinghappyhr.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you next Thursday.